What if you could consistently create more quality sales ready leads that resulted in more sales? Would that be okay? Would that be fine? Would that be awesome? Well, of course it would. Everybody wants more sales. I can't think of anybody who doesn't. So let's keep moving, because there is one immutable truth about sales. This never changes. Given no other choice, people will always buy on price. Always. If your solution is competitive with somebody else's solution and you don't tell them anything other than price, they're always going to buy on price. And that's not a good place to be. There's only one alternative to price, and that is value. Hence the value method that we're going to be talking about today. So value can take many forms. People can see value in reducing cost or controlling cost, in convenience, even in status, right? If you sell luxury cars, you're not necessarily going to get people on cost control, but you can certainly get them on status. Be the coolest person in your neighborhood. Safety and risk mitigation, that's a big one. People tend to buy from fear. Safety and risk mitigation is a big motivator and a big value that can be discussed as you're talking about your solutions. Efficiency, market positioning, these are all things that can have a factor in how you talk to your market. But I got to tell you, providing great value is not the whole story. In fact, most marketers are really good at sharing the value of their solutions. Our property management team is fully credentialed and manages over 10 million square feet of office space. That's valuable, right? We know how to take care of both owners and tenants. Perfect. Or how about, this course is perfect for career changers looking to break into the healthcare field. Or this accounting system makes your staff more efficient and brings your organization into the 20th century. All great, right? Most marketers are really good at sharing value, but they are less good at aligning that value with what is really going on. The value that we attribute to a solution has to pass what I like to call the so what, who cares test. And that is where the value method comes in. So with your permission, I'm going to walk you through the value method and share with you the thinking that you can add into your marketing mix so that you can create more leads, sales ready to create more sales. Remember, and you might want to be taking notes here, the so what, who cares test is one that marketers should be using all the time. So what, who cares? We do this, so what, who cares? You need to have that answer. So what, who cares? Here's how we get there. Step one of the value method. What is the pain or the aspiration or the risk? So what are their challenges, fears, and frustrations? What are the things that could cause somebody to choose a solution like the one that you offer? If there isn't an immediate pain, is there a risk of pain? And if there's not pain at all, is there an aspiration? Is there something that people are trying to achieve that your solution helps them get there? You cannot adequately communicate value without first understanding the pain or aspiration. So here is your to-do.
You want to get specific about the problem you solve and the benefits you provide in the eyes of your customer. So you want to understand it isn't just about features and that, but you want to know really clearly fears, frustrations, challenges. That's the problem picture. And then the benefit that your customer gets from being your customer, from working with your products and services. What is the benefit they get in their eyes, not your eyes, their eyes? What would they say? And how do you know? Well, you have a couple options to how you find this stuff out. You could ask your current customers, your current clients, and review their reasons for becoming a client. Have them go back to before they chose you. Why did they choose you? What was going on, right? Or you can interview your perfect potential customers that are in your niche. Don't want to do this with people who you just might casually know, hey, let me run this by you, when they're not ever somebody who would buy from you. It's just not valid, whatever they have to say. They might have some cool insights and stuff like that, but you don't know if you're not talking to people in your niche. And a third killer way to do this is with the right prompt set. You could use an AI to give you amazing amounts of insights. The thing is it's got to be the right prompt set. So I'm going to leave it there because that's not what we're talking about today, but leave it at that. Those are ways that you could get at this particular thing and get it very crystal clear for yourself.
Like Kim, I imagine there's people on the call who think they already know this stuff. This is old news.
Yes, I imagine so. And
what if they think they already know?
Yeah, well, that's the killer, right? That's expert's mind. You know everything there is to know about your product and your market and everything else. And so you do the same thing you've always done over and over and over and over and get the same results, except for that's the lie. You think if you do the same thing over and over time, you're going to get the same results instead of diminishing results. And so what you want to do is you got to stay tuned into your market. You got to stay tuned into your customers. Things change. COVID is a perfect example. There was pre-COVID, and then there's life after COVID. And the life after COVID for many businesses is dramatically different than life pre-COVID. Their customers that they serve and their concerns have completely shifted in certain cases. And so you've got to stay tuned in to that. So I always recommend coming at it from beginner's mind. Having an outside perspective can do wonders for your thinking, rather than doing the same old, because you're so jaded and you're so colored with your rose-colored filters, you can only see your market in one way. Shake it up.
I call it polluted. We're all polluted with our own stuff, right?
Yes.
And think about the other thing that could happen. So we've got pre-COVID, post-COVID, but imagine that your client base is in a market segment that just had a major disruption occur. So think back, and yes, guilty. I've been watching Foods That Made America on the History Channel, and the fascinating story was just, I don't know if it was on or if it was taped that my husband played, but it was what Starbucks did to Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts was this hugely established coffee donut shop, and here comes Starbucks with fancy coffees that all of a sudden are like $4 instead of $1. What is happening?
Right.
Your clients have similar things going on all the time. So as Kim said, stay tapped in. And maybe you do an annual look.
Right.
Do
and
it regularly.
There's another really good example. And that example is LastPass. You know, password managers are really super important these days to keep you with a very unique password on all the sites, and you want a password manager. Well, LastPass was a really, really popular password management tool because it was free. And so tons of people glommed onto it. Well, they had a breach and they handled it really, really poorly. Literally, somebody got in through a developer. Anyway, long story, they opened up and unlocked all the passwords. So they were free for the taking, right? Of all the passwords, right? So what happened? 1Password, who's a leader in the field, they went after those customers and converted them and paid off their 1Password subscriptions in certain cases and automatically ported them over. Do you think they
paid off their
LastPass commitment? Right. They paid it off if there was a commitment, like say they'd signed up for a year and to pay 12 times or whatever. They brought them over and converted them. Do you think they gained a lot of customers? And they took advantage of that opportunity. Why? Because they had their ear to the ground and they could see where they could leverage it. You always want to stay tuned in.
All right. So now I'm going to move on to step 2. Step 2 of the value method is understanding the costs of your solution. Now, cost in dollars is the obvious cost, right? But there's more cost than that. What is the time investment that your client or customer will need to make in order for your solution to be implemented? And what effort will they need to put forth? And that effort can include disruption to their business. and even inconvenience. So the middle part of the value method is the cost, dollars, time, and effort. Those things have got to be understood. So here's your marketing to do.
And that is understand all the costs associated with your solution so that you can best position yourself and best tell the story that's going to matter and motivate action on the part of your perfect potential customers. So part of the job of marketing is to have an awareness of the costs, time, money, effort, right? Time, money, effort. So if you have awareness of all those costs, but then you can marry those up against the challenges and issues, and then you can appeal to the biggest motivators, and you can mix those up in a way you can cause people to act, you can cause people to engage. Now they're interested, you've pricked their interest. Those things are the ways that you need to pay attention. So you want to have a way for you to marry that together. And I think that steps right into what Margaret's going to now step us into next.
Step 3, are you ready? What are the perceived benefits of the solution that you're offering? And what is the CODN? What is CODN, Margaret? Cost of doing nothing. The CODN, the cost of doing nothing. So what outcomes are possible to achieve with your solution? And what is the potential cost of doing nothing? Now, these two things are together for a specific reason, okay? You could sell a solution that might have some nice outcomes, but people don't care about those nice outcomes because they've had the best accounting system in the universe installed since 1985, and it works perfectly for them, and they don't want to change it. But it's completely insecure. The potential cost of doing nothing is they could get fined, they could get sued, they could have a security breach. And if candidly you're in a regulated industry like healthcare or financial services and banking, the cost of doing nothing could even end up being jail time. So these two things marry together because even if somebody doesn't want the outcomes, if the cost of doing nothing is incredibly high, then that sits on the right-hand side, okay, together, because we add them up. And if the cost of doing nothing is low, then the outcomes need to be high. And this must be a factor in how you communicate value. So here's your marketing to do. Pretty simple. Go ahead, Kim.
If the pain exists, right, and you can solve it, if your product, if they engage in the product, can solve that pain, and the pain's high enough, people will pay any price to get it. But what outcomes could occur for your client? You need to be clear. What is the outcome they can look forward to enjoying? What is it? What could that look like for them? Paint that picture. And if your client does nothing, are there potential costs associated with that? You know, they might say, well, is it too late? Will it really make a difference? Is there a better time to do this? We should, you know, and the answer a lot of times is, well, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And when you've built the case, they're like, oh, God, you're right. Okay, we should look at this. Even if they don't have budget, if you can look at those triggers and you can play with those pains and all that stuff, and you can bring it together in a story, because all decisions are made emotionally. No matter how logical the person is, you've got to appeal to the emotion and the logic, depending on, you know, what their profile is. But people, you can paint this picture so that you can literally position it. But it's all positioned with what? Content.
Oh, we'll get there in a minute. Definitely. So here's the other piece of this, right? Well, you know what? Let me just go on to the next one, because what I want to do is show you how the value method comes together. So on the left-hand side is the pain or aspiration. And if there isn't a direct pain, is there a risk of pain? I'll be candid with you. We have a client in the cybersecurity industry who is having trouble because people don't perceive the pain until they experience the pain, right? You don't know the pain of getting a ransomware attack in your systems until you've had it, okay? And then you know how badly it hurts, and you'll do anything to make sure it doesn't happen again. But until it happens, you don't know what it is. So how do you make that work? Well, the risk of the pain is what has to be painted. Then the middle part, okay? The costs in dollars, time, and effort. And that cost has to be lower than the pain or aspiration. The cost also has to be less than the perceived benefit of the solution, plus the cost of doing nothing. Those two things added together are what balance out the right side of this method. This is where value lives. And to paint this out even more specifically, here's what you want. You want the pain or aspiration to be high on the scale, the cost to be lower on the scale, and the perceived benefit plus the cost of doing nothing to be high again. So that you almost have this V thing going on where the cost is at the bottom of the V, and the pain on the left side and the perceived benefit on the right side are weighing each other out on the top. This is where value lives. And yes, V does stand for value, and I did that totally accidentally. So the value method paints this picture in a way that people will get. But here's the big deal. You cannot rely on people to connect the dots for themselves. They don't do it. Few of them do it. And quite honestly, it's the marketer's job to communicate value before sales ever gets involved.
Right.
You
And
have to,
Margaret,
yeah.
and Margaret, one of the things I just want to add this that occurred to me. One of the things that you want to really watch here is that you don't allow too much unsupervised thinking. So if you've got all these dots and you think it's crystal clear, and you've got all that, and you're not taking people by the hand and guiding them, now you're leaving for way too much unsupervised thinking, and it'll be surprising if they ever get to where you want them to go. So you want to be able to guide them. So anyways, go ahead.
All right. So yeah, you have to draw the picture so that people you're talking to through your email marketing, through your website, through your social post will see how the dots connect. When you do this, you create more sales ready leads, people who get what you can do for them and are most likely to ask you to do it because they also believe that you get them. So how do you do that? Well, here's your marketing to do.
Tell the stories that illustrate the value you provide. How do you do that? You connect the dots, right? You connect the dots. You take them by the hand, you guide them. Talk about their pain or the risk of it and the potential benefits or the cost of doing nothing. So you want to be able to distinguish them moving forward versus the cost of not moving forward. You know, add all that stuff up while making the solution costs seem reasonable and manageable when you bring them up. Because what you've got to do is you've got to have people that are willing to take the steps to not only buy your solution and your services, but implement them and have success. Because it's through that success you build case studies. Case studies breed right back into this because it tells you another story that you can tell to other prospective customers, right?
That's right. So think about adjusting your website. Adopt a new philosophy for blog posts, or if you don't have one, implement a blog. You want to make the problem you solve absolutely obvious and contrast it with how simple it would be to solve that problem. Make people understand what you can do to help them in a way that will resonate with where they're at in their brains when they're thinking about their problem. So again, if you're a property manager, it's not that you manage 16 million square feet of office space, is that you reduce tenant churn and increase occupancy rates. Those are the things that every building owner is concerned about right now, is people are not renewing their leases. Well, how do you help them keep tenants or get new tenants? That's the value you have to be talking about with your website and your blog posts. That's the case studies you need to be developing. That is what's critical to building value, because you want your people buying based on value
That's right.
every time.
Right. And
So here's another.
if you think about it, even if you're in the residential property management space, I was on a call earlier today. If you're in that space and you want more units under management, or the sophisticated investors will say, I have more doors. If you say you have more units under management, you're going after the landlords that are doing self property management, that are tired of the tenant calls, the repairs, the maintenance, all of the stuff that comes up over and over and over. They just want to maximize their investment, have better relationships with their tenant, and have peace of mind at nights when they wake up in the morning. They actually have a life they love. So there's all of those things that you could also appeal to, right? So you have to look at it from the point of view of your perfect potential customer. And
Right.
you have to, first of all, understand who they are, like we said at the beginning. Secondly, understand the cost of what it is and the benefits that you provide. And then you want to make sure that you have a content strategy that takes them by the hand and walks them right through that process. And it isn't about what can I write about today, where you don't have a thought about how it all connects. So you want that content strategy that actually lays it out, that you can just implement.
Which takes us to our next slide, right? Your marketing to do here. Your last marketing to do of the day is to create content that confirms, guides, and illustrates the possible outcomes. You need to confirm the problem they're facing is real, okay? People get on a search engine and they type in a question. Is it real? Is it only them, or are others experiencing this? You can confirm the problem they're facing is real. You can talk about specific pieces of the problem, offer them something they can download that will help them with one aspect of it. Take them an inch along the way on their journey of figuring out what the solution is, and that solution lives with you. And discuss the potential benefits of solving the problem. And finally, as Kim mentioned a moment ago, develop case studies that illustrate how you helped others with the same problem. That is where value lives and how you communicate it. With the value method, you can consistently create more quality sales-ready leads that result in more sales. With that, want to open the floor for questions.
That's right. And if you're interested in understanding more about content and content strategies, just let us know. We can have a totally good call with you to give you some ideas there and to explore that. But go ahead and enter into the Q&A box any questions that you might have.
Here's one. How do you go about developing a content strategy? That's a great question. Kim, you want to field that one?
Yeah, I mean, it starts, we actually have a whole process that we've done over and over and over, repeatable process about how you create one. You have to understand the perfect potential customer, and you've got to also understand how customers end up becoming customers all the way through sales. And when you understand those pieces of that, then you can start to build content strategies for different portions of the buyer's journey. So, because you want to take them by the hand and lead them all the way through, from awareness to where they're actually decision making and then purchasing. You want to be that preferred vendor. And so you want to make sure that you're looking at it all the way through, and you want to be able to generate the ideas and the thinking for that content. But basically, you want to be able to get your content sorted out. So if any of you are really interested in that, we'd love to talk to you. It's just too much of an answer to go into well enough here. But if you want, just reach out to us, go to our website, contact us, say, I want to talk strategy for content, and we'll have an exploratory call with you and walk it through with you a bit, and give you some good places to go.
Okay. Do we have other questions that have come in?
There's one right here, and it mostly deals with what if it's really hard to figure out, to get the interviews. People have an issue with getting the interviews, or to really question that. I would say, well, it's a great way to get voice of the customer that you can use in your marketing, that's for sure. So I would say, see if you can't get them. Otherwise, the one thing that I did say is, anyone interested in AI and chat GPT or anything like that with the right, and it has to be the right prompts, you can get amazing insights that you can then feed in that help you to get content that'll blow you away. But again, you got to have the right prompts, but you got to be, one thing has to be clear, no matter what you use in your prompts, you got to understand who is your perfect potential customer. You get that wrong, and everything else, like a waterfall over the cliff, will end up being inaccurate, and it won't work.
And I know we just have a couple of minutes left, and I did see another question come in, which is, are there any books that you recommend that talk about this in detail? So the value method, as you've seen it today, is our invention. We came up with this based on our decades and decades of experience in this area. As far as books, I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. I always recommend that marketers read books about sales, because if marketing doesn't understand what the sales process is, it impedes marketing's ability to support the sales process. And remember, we don't market for the sake of marketing. We market so that our organization can sell more stuff, sell more products or services or whatever it is that we provide. One of the books I recommend people read is The Challenger Sale. Is an excellent book that goes into detail about how you can build pain. They call it rational drowning. We drown people in the pain and then go, but here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Only we can help you solve it. It's really a cool process and very fun. And you may find that some of your sales team members are actually doing it without even realizing that they're doing it. So it's a fascinating process and a great read for marketers that I highly recommend.
If you liked the video, go ahead and click that like button, then subscribe to receive notifications of new ones, and thanks for watching.